Hello, everyone. My name is Kardia, and I'm here to read you some truly scary stories. They were told to me by one of my closest friends, so grab a cup of coffee and your favorite beverage. Mine's coffee. You guys can grab chocolate milk or tea or whatever you want. Sit in a comfy place and enjoy the narration. But actually, before I begin, I do want to mention that these stories may not be suitable for our younger viewers, so just be aware of that, okay? My friend, we'll call him Mike because he asked me not to mention his name, and I understand why, and you'll see why in a moment. He left the pharmacy to take his lunch break, and a patient, seeing his hospital uniform, called from her room to him to get help for her, for something, I'm not sure for what, or get her nurse. Mike was a bit agitated because he was hungry, and he walked quickly, got to the nurse's station. The nurse station was a few doors down from the woman's room that needed the help. As Mike pointed to the patient's room to show the nurse which room he was talking about, the patient was leaving the room and heading down the hallway towards the elevators. Mike looked at the nurse and said, "That woman that's leaving. She was the one that needed the help," while he was still pointing to the room where the woman had come out from. The nurse looked at Mike and told him that he must be talking about a different room and a different patient because that room was empty. Mike, now additionally frustrated because he was now missing his very short lunch break, jogged down to the elevator to stop the woman from going down and to let her know that he had gotten a nurse for her. She wasn't by the elevators, and Mike assumed he must have just missed her. She must have gone in the elevators. He looked back at the nurse, and the nurse had gone back to doing what she was previously doing with the paperwork that she was holding at the time. He walked fast to the patient's room, which was now empty, and both beds in the patient room were, made and ready for new patients. He looked at the nurse and said she was in this room, pointing to the room he was standing in. Sure, you guys know what's coming. The nurse looked at him, told him, "Hey, there's nobody in that room. There was never an elderly lady in that room recently. The last elderly lady that was in the room had actually passed away earlier that morning." Mike looked around the rooms, all up and down the hallway. He even went to places that he wasn't even in, in that corridor. And there was no patient that even resembled that woman. The nurse told him that he must have been mistaken, and he saw a family member instead, of a patient. The nurse laughed and walked away. Of course, Mike hadn't told her what he told me because he thought that everybody would think he was nuts. That the so-called family member that the nurse thought he saw instead of a patient was wearing a hospital gown, was laying on the hospital bed, hooked up to an IV and a cardiac monitor. I truly don't know how to react to that ending of the story. When I first heard it, when she first told me before I posted it to you guys, it just, I wanted to know more. I just, okay, so did he tell anybody else? Whatever happened with that? And she said she has no clue. I guess also a little bit of background on her. She told me all these stories. They're not stories that she particularly has experienced. It was stories that she collected for a book that she was going to write. She gave up on that, and actually, I have the honor of going out there and giving you these stories for free. Before I begin the second story, just wanted to make a quick mention of Bizbin.com. We're a new channel, and Bizbin.com is making it possible for us to grow, make more content for everyone. We'd like to stay on a regular schedule and post every single week. Please visit the website if you want to buy or sell items from users just like you. Or if you ever want to create auctions for your items, it's absolutely free. It's not going to cost you anything. It's a fantastic new marketplace that just launched this past week. There are so many features that I'm already in love, and will be listing a bunch of items myself, as well as doing some, obviously doing some shopping. Okay, now that we have shown some love to bizbin.com, let's talk about our next story. I used to live with my grandmother Elena. She had a horse stable, and my cousin and I used to ride on the trails next to her home. One day, as we're riding and talking, something scares my horse, throws me down with a lot of force. My grandfather runs up, asks if I'm okay, tells me to get back up and it's going to be all right. My friend started freaking out, ran to my grandmother, telling her I was hurt. I slowly got up, and my grandpa told me to lean against a tree and wait for my grandmother, not to move too much. My friend ran up after a while, followed by my worried grandmother. It then dawned on me that my grandfather had died last year. I didn't tell my grandmother what had just happened, and I'm afraid to ask my friend if she saw the man that was talking to me, my grandfather, or at least he looked like my grandfather. That particular story gave me goosebumps. I mean, I don't know, it could be real, it could be fake, but I went through something very, very similar, and it really struck a chord with me personally. So, okay, let's continue. My brother and I lived with my aunt and uncle since my mother had passed away, and we never knew our father. I was maybe 2 years old, and my brother was a baby when we first got there. So I don't have any significant memories until it was a bit older. One memory that sticks out is a week after my 12th birthday. My aunt ran up waving her hands and being quite frantic, told us that we need to hide in the basement, that someone bad was coming, and I needed to grab my brother from his room and stay really quiet. I ran into my brother's room, grabbed him right away from his toys, and told him to shut up and follow me. I guess the worry on my face showed because my brother came willingly and abandoned his toys, which was definitely a first. So anyway, I shut his door, ran to the basement, trying to make very little noise while running down the stairs, which is a bit hard if you ever run down the stairs in an old house. They're wooden and makes a lot of noise. We hid behind the bags of clothes my aunt had put in the basement for my uncle to bring to the donation. The bags were oversized and hid, my brother and I, who were very scrawny, and at least I started feeling a little bit more comfortable. I held my brother. We cried silently as possible. And what seemed like hours later, I hear my aunt yell our names. I wait until I hear her say it's okay and to come out. Ran upstairs and hugged her really, really tight. And I remember I asked her what happened. Who's the bad man? A teenager, I was really curious, so I wanted her to tell me right away, but she had tears running down her face and told us that no one was there, everything was alright, and I left it alone. After she had called the police to come, my aunt called her sister, my other aunt, and picked up my little brother. After that, the police came to the house. I didn't hear anything. I was very curious. I couldn't sneak by and hear anything. I was very frustrated. So I asked my aunt again at night, okay, can you please tell me what happened? My brother's not around. She, of course, hesitated, but I had been home. I had witnessed the police come over, so obviously I would have had some questions. She said since my aunt and uncle only had one car and he had taken it to work, my uncle had taken the car to work. I guess the person who broke into our house thought there was no one there. He broke through the living room window, right behind the couch I was laying on, playing my Game Boy. So if my aunt hadn't come in screaming and yelling, he would have had at least stepped on me and covered me in broken large shards of glass. They ripped the couch, so my aunt got startled by the noise and yelled for him to get out, the robber to get out. He left out the same window without taking anything. I know that you guys noticed what I hadn't noticed that day. If the robber startled my aunt, how did my aunt come to warn us before the man broke in? What I didn't tell you is that my aunt was my mom's twin sister. Well, thank you all so very much for joining me today. I hope you had a relaxing time or a spooky time, whatever time you wanted to have. Let me know in the comments if you want to hear more of these stories. What did you guys think of them? I know you must hear this a lot, but the more you like and the more you subscribe, more excited we get about bringing you new content. So please click that like button below, as well as that bell to get the notifications on our future uploads. We will be uploading on a consistent basis every single week. I look forward to spending some time with you guys then, and much love to our sponsor, of course, bizbin.com. Again, thank you for the support, Bizbin, and have a great night, all.